Hey guys, so today I'm here to talk about the changing world economic order. And to do that we need to step back almost 80 years to something that happened right here in New Hampshire, which was the Bretton Woods Agreement. What the Bretton Woods Agreement said was that other countries would make their currencies convertible to US dollars. Now, what that has meant in practice is that for the last 8 decades, the United States has been able to export money that since 1971 has not been backed by anything inherently valuable like gold, but just based on the faith that other countries have placed in us, we're able to export this to a country like China. And in return, China is essentially sending us goods. In this case, a Vortex Strike Eagle scope. Awesome scope, but I would bet that a lot of the guys who are sticking these on top of their rifles did not know that these were made in China if they didn't do their research ahead of time. I certainly didn't. But this isn't a rifle scope episode, and it's not even specifically a China episode. It's talking about what this shift in the global world order is going to mean to us. So what this means is that we've been in a position to acquire resources and manufactured goods cheaper than we otherwise would have. And it's meant that we've had sort of a lot more latitude at home to print money, like we did during the COVID handouts. We can print the money out of nothing, and the impact that has in terms of inflation has certainly been felt. But because everybody takes the dollar as the de facto gold standard, as the reserve currency of choice, it really hasn't had the same level of impact on us that it would have had otherwise. So we might be looking a lot more like a country like Venezuela or Zimbabwe. Probably not that bad, but it would be significantly worse than it is today if the dollar wasn't the reserve currency. Now we are starting to see some changes, and that is being led by China. So obviously with the war in Ukraine, Russia and China have recently agreed that they're going to trade things like Russian oil in either rubles or Chinese yuan. Saudi Arabia, longtime staunch ally of the US, has now said they're considering settling up in yuan. And there's some Chinese involvement there, brokering a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, longtime enemies. If they're able to pull that off, that's really bad news. That means China's stepping into the leading role in the Middle East. Brazil, of all countries, has decided to start taking Chinese yuan. And Brazil is a big exporter of things like beef and soy, and at some point they're probably going to come up to a higher level of development and be a manufacturing destination as well. So there were a number of other countries on that list, guys. That wasn't it. I know that some of the Southeast Asian countries in that ASEAN trading bloc are starting to talk about trading with China in yuan. So I don't think the dollar is going to go away as the reserve currency of the world anytime soon. I think there was a bit of hysteria around this, and I don't think it's going to happen in 2023 necessarily, but I do think that in something like a 5 to 10 year time frame, we are going to see this unipolar American-led world order fall apart. And that is going to have repercussions for us in the United States. It's going to be a lot of dislocations. We import a lot of our goods. I was going to do a bit here where I went through everything that was made just in China that I found around the house. And that rifle scope was a bit of a surprise, but a lot of the power tools, the lenses that I'm running on this camera, the laptop that I edit the YouTube videos on, they're all made in China. And many of the other ones, even if we have better trading partners, are made in places like Korea, Japan, Canada. We don't make a lot in this country anymore, guys. We're heavily biased towards imports, and that's because we've had the reserve currency. So there's going to be serious shocks to our financial system, to our economy. I think that's probably going to mean more inflation, more economic instability, and so that's why we're showing on this channel some practical things you can do to build some resilience. There's no simple answer to this. Like, I'm not here to give the financial solutions, but I mean, people will talk about precious metals. I think that's a good idea, but do your research and don't dump everything you have into silver. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, yeah, they might have a role to play, But honestly, guys, that's only going to do so much to shelter your wealth. You're going to be living in a system that's turned sideways. And I'm pretty convinced of that at this point. How bad it will be, I don't know. Maybe it'll just be bad economic times like the 1970s. I think that's kind of on the light end of the possible spectrum. And then on the heavy consequences side, we could be looking at something more like what happened to the USSR. And I think that's inconceivable for a lot of people. I certainly hope that's not the way it goes, but you know, there's an awful lot that we take for granted, I think, without even realizing. I don't think most Americans realize how global trade works. I don't think they realize the special status the dollar has had. And I don't think they realize how their day-to-day lives are heavily dependent on the status quo that we've had. So there's no one solution I can offer you guys, but please keep tuning back in. We're going to try to offer, you know, real-world, sane things that normal people can do as we go on here.